Welcome back. Let's continue here now. The Reserve Bank says despite the downward inflation trajectory, inflation risks remain. The central bank says hiking interest rates has been effective in curbing inflation. The Reserve Bank is hosting the Biennial Conference in Cape Town, bringing together central bankers and economists from different parts of the world. The conference is held under the theme Post-Crisis Lessons and Policy Challenges. Our reporter Gloria Sefako-Musi has more from there.
We're coming to you from the Cape Town International Convention Centre, where the Reserve Bank is hosting the Biennial Conference, bringing together central bankers and economists from around the world, looking at post-crisis lessons and policy challenges. I guess it's been an eventful 3 years, starting from the COVID pandemic, and now central banks around the world are dealing with high inflation. We've seen central banks, including the Reserve Bank, hiking interest rates to try and curb inflation. From the sessions that we had this morning, we understand that this has been effective in terms of curbing inflation, but inflation does remain high. But to talk to us more about this, we have here the Deputy Governor, Rashad Kassim. Thank you so much, sir, for talking to us. Would you say that the Reserve Bank is winning in the battle against inflation?
Yeah, I think that we've seen inflation numbers go down recently. We don't think, it's clear that inflation will decline sustainably. We still want to see more evidence. We're still worried about oil prices. We're worried about food prices. So although we think we've reached the peak of inflation, we still think there are many challenges for inflation going forward, and we'll have to look very, very closely at the data.
So we've had here that the high interest rate environment has had a negative impact on the job market, especially in the United States. Are we able to estimate as to by how much the high interest rate environment has affected the local economy?
So there are two things. We increase interest rates because we worried about inflation. By increasing interest rates, we slow down the economy. And one of the ways in which this works is that when you increase interest rates, the economy contracts, and the contraction of the economy brings inflation down. Now, we don't do that because we want the economy to contract. We think that the cost of not managing inflation in the long run will lead to more unemployment than the temporary cost you may bear by trying to manage inflation in the medium term.
And how is our banking sector coping with the high interest rate environment in terms of understand there are people that are starting to make mortgage payments, are keeping up with their debt repayments?
So it is always the case that, when households borrow, it's one thing to borrow when the interest rates are really low. And when the SAB has to increase interest rates, those who are borrowing at the maximum of what their income allows will suffer. We have been very, very responsible in the way we manage interest rates. We don't just suddenly increase interest rates by 400-500 basis points. We've done it in a very, very moderate way, and that has helped some households. But it is unfortunate that if the economy is not growing, and therein lies the source of the problem, when the economy is not growing, and the bank has to manage inflation, the effects on households are more adverse than it would be otherwise.
And we saw that in July you kept rates on hold, and we've seen with the recent stats from SABC, inflation is low, it's at about 4.7%. With that said, is it too soon to start talking about easing interest rates?
I think it's too soon. I think that we want to see what happens with inflation for a few months. Oil prices move up and down. We're going to adjust the fuel prices up again soon. So I don't think it's clear that we're on a downward track. There may be some bumps here and there, and we have to look very closely before we can be confident that it's a kind of a sustained decline in inflation.
Thank you so much, Steve, for joining us. Well, that is the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank, Mr. Rashad Kassim, talking to us here from the Cape Town International Convention Centre at the Biennial Conference. He says that it's too soon to talk about easing interest rates. Well, with that, it's back to you in studio.